بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا زلزلت الأرض زلزالها وأخرجت الأرض أثقالها وقال الإنسان ما لها يومئذ تحدث أخبارها بأن ربك أوحى لها يومئذ يصدر الناس أشتاتا ليروا أعمالهم فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يره ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يره. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعاديات ضبحا فالموريات قدحا فالمغيرات صبحا فأثرن به نقعا فوسطن به جمعا إن الإنسان لربه لكنود وإنه على ذلك لشهيد وإنه لحب الخير لشديد أفلا يعلم إذا بعثر ما في القبور وحصل ما في الصدور إن ربهم بهم يومئذ لخبير. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم القارعة ما القارعة وما أدراك ما القارعة يوم يكون الناس كالفراش المبثوث وتكون الجبال كالعهن المنفوش فأما من ثقلت موازينه فهو في عيشة راضية وأما من خفت موازينه فأمه هاوية وما أدراك ما هي نار حامية.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسول الكريم أما بعد Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today marks the 85th day of lockdown in South Africa. It has been almost 3 months since President Ramaphosa addressed the nation on how the government would be dealing with the imminent threat of the COVID-19 virus. Since the announcement that we would be entering a state of lockdown, our lives have changed irrevocably as we moved into the reality of a pandemic. During this period, most of us have stayed at home under lock and key. All of us have lost our freedom of movement, some of us have lost loved ones, and many others have lost a great deal more. We cannot visit family members, friends, or neighbors. Unemployment has risen, and hunger has stricken our poor. Aside from that, there's been a surge in protest action around the world. These outcries have been from all corners of the globe, pertaining largely to issues of police brutality and systematic racism. This wave of activism was sparked by the public murder of George Floyd by police officers in Minneapolis, USA. This restarted protest action under the Black Lives Matter movement and reopened the eyes of many to inequalities around the world. In conjunction with this, there's also been a resurgence in activism surrounding issues of gender-based violence, xenophobia, as well as the humanitarian crises we see in places such as Palestine, Yemen, Libya, and Myanmar. Amongst the new wave of content, outcries, and even riots related to these matters, for a brief period of time, it seemed as if the pandemic was over. Now, whilst these reflections may sound like common sentiments that have been bounced around, what I would like to discuss is relevant to this particular atmosphere that we see ourselves in. It is a cornerstone of our faith, and in practicing it, it is quite relevant to congregants of this mosque, to people of Islam, and to all humans of the world. It is a practice that I have had to cultivate over the past few months, with an uncertain academic year ahead of me. Being at home most of the day, every day, and having to screen patients and take calls for up to 12 hours at a time. It has been mentioned in the Holy Quran in more than 96 verses, and is also an act that we all just finished practicing in great measure during the holy month of Ramadan. The action I'm speaking of course, is sabr, or patience. Now, patience itself is a state of being able to endure, tolerate, and accept some degree of suffering and hardship. If one has set out a goal or is faced with adversity, no matter how big or small, the ability to persevere and continue working towards the endpoint is patience. In fact, many of the positive values of the Islamic faith fall under the broader concept of patience, and this includes things like self-control, bravery, compassion, and self-discipline. Now, these acts of patience may manifest in various parts of our lives. Just a few examples of how we display small acts of patience on a daily basis include things like maintaining a garden, waiting in line to pay for your groceries at the supermarket, staying in isolation away from your friends and family, or of course, allowing your sisters enough time to rise. Now, as you can see, we all display daily acts of patience. Although they are small acts, they are patient acts nonetheless. However, the times we are living in require patience in much greater measures. In acting patiently, there are in fact two distinct ways in which we can practice it: passively and actively. Passive patience is generally described as simply waiting for something to change. And this is the type of patience we are to avoid, and it is often compared to laziness and indolence. Although it may sound like an oxymoron to some, active patience is what we need to be practicing. This is being able to recognize that something will not change overnight, but continuing to work towards changing it. It implies making directed efforts towards tolerating and changing something, but in a more steadfast and intentional manner. This type of patience can span across three separate yet intertwined spheres of one's life. This first sphere is that of patience in your daily activities. This includes patience in the workplace and, of course, the often mundane experience of housework, cleaning, and cooking that I'm all sure we have had quite enough of by this point in the lockdown. The second sphere is that of patience in one's interpersonal exchanges. These are one's day-to-day interactions with other people, and this can range from one's family members and friends to colleagues at work, cashiers at the store, and petrol attendants. The third and final sphere of one's life that we require patience in is that which is practiced during times of hardship. Now, as I'm sure we can all agree, we're all facing some degree of hardship at the moment. Being actively patient has never been more pertinent considering this new reality we have been dealt. We are all currently experiencing hardship in some form, be it an age-old struggle or newly inflicted suffering. Whilst we all have some sort of difficulty in our lives, and even though some of these difficulties are shared, some are unfortunately specific to the environments we come from. Now, it was reported by Anas ibn Malik that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that the real patience is at the first stroke of calamity. This particular hadith speaks to the times we are living in. Without the pandemic having a foreseeable end in sight, the uncertainty of what the future holds has definitely induced feelings of anxiety, fear, and stress in many, and rightly so. Amongst the plethora of injustices, we are also still facing the harsh experience of racism rooted into the structure of society, police that harm our citizens more than they protect us, and unfortunately, a world where women fear for their lives on a daily basis. These will not solve themselves, and it is vital that we all play our role in fighting against them. However, we need to be cognizant of the fact that they will not amend overnight, and directed, patient effort needs to be made if progress is to be seen. The collective efforts of the global community will pave the way forward for positive change, but in doing so, will take time. We need to be proactive, but patiently so. And this is where being actively patient falls into place. I would thus like to propose some practical guidelines for practicing active patience. I will use both examples and hadith to illustrate how these guidelines may be practiced in our day-to-day struggles. The first guideline is on understanding that passive patience is not beneficial. Progress was never achieved by simply sitting around and waiting. Some would even go as far as saying that at its core, passive patience is in fact oppressive. And this is easily analogized with the growth of a pot plant. We can all agree that once a seed has been sown, we need to wait for the plant to grow. Now, we could either be passive and leave the plant to its own accords, whereby it will most likely die. Or we could be actively patient, still waiting for the plant to grow, but making sure it gets enough sunlight and water. And this illustrates how active patience is far more beneficial to one than passive patience. The second guideline is on understanding the importance of self-reflection in breeding patient habits. Think about how often you actually take a step back and reflect on your thoughts and feelings surrounding your personal struggles. When dealing with adversities, this is a step many people overlook as they rush to find a solution. In his works on patience, Imam al-Ghazali references that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that the wise man is he who judges himself and works for what comes after. We must strive to gain this kind of wisdom through self-reflection, as it can help us find clarity on why we think, feel, and act in certain ways. And ideally, we should be practicing some kind of introspection on a daily basis. For instance, you may ask yourselves, how many times was my patience tested today? How did I respond to these tests? What were my reactions to these hardships? Were my thoughts and emotions justified? How did I act now, and how will I act in the future? Do I know anyone else feeling the same way? If my actions were unjust, how can I improve on them in the future? Now, whilst this may sound like a relatively simple process, self-reflection is indeed a challenging task, and one that many of us steer clear of. However, it is a vital component of developing patient ways, as it may help us have a superior understanding of our own thoughts and feelings, and in doing so, help us avoid heedlessness and impatience. The third and final guideline is on the importance of knowledge. It was reported that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that knowledge is the guiding factor of action, and action is subordinate to knowledge. This illustrates the fact that if you do not understand the problem at hand, and if you are not certain in your actions, you will not be able to successfully overcome the adversity. When a person's certainty is strengthened through the seeking of knowledge, this knowledge becomes faith. So whilst it is important to educate ourselves, it's also important to educate those around us. This could be as simple as starting a discussion at the dinner table or sending an informative article to a friend. It is incumbent for people to share information that is valuable and seek knowledge in good measures. And if you cannot educate those around you, seek knowledge with them, or even for them. In preparing for this Nasiha, I found the writings of Imam al-Ghazali quite beneficial on the teachings of patience in Islam. And I would encourage anyone seeking further understanding of the topic to visit his works. So by following these 3 simple guidelines, I hope that we can all breed enduring and patient ways. Hopefully this will help us overcome the various degrees of suffering and hardships we are currently presented with. There is definitely beauty in steadfastness, and we need to persist in doing good and doing so patiently. For this, we will surely be rewarded. In conclusion, I would like to leave you with a verse from Surah Al-Qasas from the Holy Quran. أولئك يؤتون أجرهم مرتين بما صبروا ويدرعون بالحسنة سيئات ومما رزقناهم ينفقون. Those will be given their reward twice for what they patiently endured, and because they avert evil through good, and from what we have provided them, they spend. Shukran for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر